Splatoon 3 just got its major expansion with side order, and in this video I'm going to complete it with all 12 weapons, along with a really difficult challenge at the end, but we'll get to that later. Step 1 was to start the game and attempt to complete my first run of the tower. The first time you go in the spire, it's pretty much a beginner's mode. There's only 10 floors to climb, unlike the usual 30 that you have to do to complete a normal run. The first weapon you start with is the dualies. Alright, what weapons are we using? Okay, I'll take them. I'd prefer the brush, but let's go. These are a part of Pearl's palette. There was also a drone in this mode, which is pretty cool. Speaking of palettes, I learned how to use colour chips and how they work. Setting chips onto the palette improved my abilities while climbing the tower. So I can do an easy, normal, hard stage, and then I guess I get better rewards, don't I? I think I'm just going to do normal. Stick with normal, not easy, but not hard either. I get one chip per floor, so I have to carefully choose which one to go for. And they're also random each time, so learning which ones benefit me the most is really important. These first 10 floors are mainly about learning what type of levels there are. There's ones where you have to destroy portals, protect splat zones, yeah. And if you've played Octo expansion, you'll recognise the 8 balls. They've even got Splatoon classics like Tower Control and Beyblades. No way they got Beyblades in Splatoon now. I made it to the end of these 10 floors and fought the boss. The boss fight isn't really anything special, but beating it does free Marina. Marina is a really important character in side order. By giving her pearls that I earn from clearing floors, she can enable hacks. Hacks are really useful, I'm not gonna lie. They give me permanent upgrades to my character, and can even do things like making enemies weaker. I decided to spend some pearls on damage reduction first. My thinking here was the less damage I take, the better. Let's just get damage reduction, that sounds like a good first one to get. I did like the sound of extra lives in a continue though. With some pearls spent and hacks obtained, I was ready to start my first proper run. Since I'd been using the dualies before, I decided to continue with them. The higher I climbed with them, the more keys I got. These allowed me to get more pallets with weapons like the Brella, which I was not looking forward to using by the way. Anyway, my first run with the dualies wasn't terrible. I wanted to focus on how to effectively deal with the different floors, and to be honest, just try to survive them. The portal levels were really fun. If I just focused on destroying the portals as quickly as possible, the enemies weren't that much of a problem. Splat zones are a bit of a pain sometimes though, which you'll see later. I did manage to make it to the 10th floor though, and fought my first proper boss. It was the Asynchronous Rondo. Kinda sounds like a Yu-Gi-Oh monster, I'm not gonna lie. The bosses aren't too difficult this early on though, but man do they drag on and take forever to kill. To beat it, you have to destroy it layer by layer while avoiding the light. I did manage to beat it though, and moved on, but then I died at floor 11. I don't even know what to say about this. I just sort of died. Side order being a roguelite means that dying isn't a complete waste of time. I earned some pearls which I could use for some more hacks. I decided to get an extra life so I could feel a bit more safe while climbing floors. Having gotten a life, I started another run. At floor 5, I took a break at a vending machine. Clearing floors gives me a currency called membooks, which I could spend at vending machines that appear. They're basically free floors. You can buy all sorts of things, like specials, colour chips, and lives. Looking back, I probably shouldn't have bought the ink bottle upgrade. The triple ink strike was probably the better choice here. But hey, you live and learn. Regardless of that though, I made it to floor 17 this run, which was pretty good. But the boss at floor 10 sucked. It's called the Pinging Marseal, and it takes forever to kill. A lot of the bosses go on for a while, but this one takes the longest. But eventually, I killed it. Anyway, floor 17. I opted to take the danger option, which was a bit risky. Danger floors have some sort of bonus effect that you have to deal with while playing. I tried to get them out the way with when they appear, so there aren't too many when I get higher up. The effect here was lights out, which means you can barely see what's around you. As I tried to keep the tower moving along, the enemies just kept coming out of nowhere, and I died. Of course, while I knew dying wasn't wasted time, it still hurt a bit. What I didn't realise though, is that I wasn't making use of one of the dualies' key features, the Dark Souls roll. This is a really useful ability, you can use it to get out of the way of enemies. Manoeuvring my way around the maps became a lot easier once I actually started using this. After that run, I got some more hacks from Marina, and gave it another go. This next run went a bit better. I actually made it past floor 20, and I need to talk about the boss here. This is genuinely one of the funnest bosses in side order. You have to fight waves of octolings as they appear. I enjoyed fending these guys off, and the fight didn't take as long as that stupid ball thing did. I ended up making it to floor 23, but I died on another tower escort mission. But I knew I was getting better, and I was pretty eager to make it to the final floor, so I started the next run. The thing is though, the higher I climbed, the longer these runs were taking, so I did not want to die again. During this run, I carried on using the Dark Souls dodge, and was also trying to find a colour chip which allows me to do 2 rolls. I also bought an extra life and continue hack, which allowed me to pay some membooks to refill on lives if I run out during a run. This was a lifesaver. I managed to make it to floor 27. The run wasn't going terribly until this floor. My only option in difficulty was rigorous, the hardest, which is just my luck. And looking back now, I shouldn't have chosen the Splat Zone floor, even if I like the sound of the ink recovery chip. But man, this floor was brutal. I had to look out for 2 splat zones that were really far apart for some reason, and I really struggled at this. The main problem here was for 2 flying guys that just kept going back and forth until I eventually just died. I really don't get what you meant to do though. Even with a continuing 3 lives, I still couldn't beat it. I was so close to the top of the spire as well. Any confidence I had was diminished after this floor, and I wasn't looking forward to the next run. I decided that my main problem wasn't defense, but offense. I wasn't defeating enemies quick enough with how many they throw at you. And so, I decided to spend some pearls on increasing the damage that I dealt. And then, I started another run. I managed to make it past floor 20, and I bought the sprinkler sub-weapon, as I thought it may be helpful if splat zones appeared again. For some reason though, the RNG gods blessed me during this run. I was offered the normal difficulty on floor 28, so you know I took it. Floor 29 was only hard in difficulty as well, so I managed to beat it. We might actually get to the final boss this run. And so, floor 30 was next, and it was the final boss, and I'm not gonna lie, I was scared. The run was almost 40 minutes long at this point, and I did not want to lose right at the end. Hopefully we can handle this final boss, we can beat it this run maybe. But 2 lives, but I have got a continue hopefully, so let's do this. The final boss is Order. To beat it, you have to destroy a number of tentacles that surround it. It's kinda like destroying those portals from earlier. I was pretty relieved by this, as the portal levels were the ones I found the easiest. My strategy here was to avoid the enemies and just focus on destroying the tentacles alone. The quicker I got rid of them, the sooner I could attack Order itself. The triple ink strike was pretty useful here. If I was ever overwhelmed by enemies, I could use it to clear the area. After destroying the tentacles and attacking Order 3 times, the fight was over, and my first run was complete. Oh my god, is that it? There was another story related boss after this, but you get as many tries as you want, and it's only a one-time thing, so there's no point showing and spoiling it for anyone. Anyway, completing this run was a small victory though, as I still had 11 more weapons to use. Overall, the splat dualies were a lot of fun to use, especially when you get the right chips for them. The dodge roll is really useful, especially when you get some upgrades for it. After I returned to the main plaza, I had to decide on my next weapon. I also had a decent amount of pearls, so I got some more hacks enabled. I got an armor upgrade, a damage increase again, and a couple more. A floor reset also sounded interesting, as it allowed me to pay some membooks to change what floors and rewards are offered to me. I had quite a few palettes to pick from, but the one I ended up going for was the splattershot. I think for my second weapon, I'm going to go for the splattershot. It seems like a good second weapon to go with. I felt like this was a pretty basic and easy weapon to use next. My first run with the splattershot went pretty smoothly at the beginning. I gotta tell you though, floor 20 was horrible. All this time, I thought the boss at floor 20 was always the fight with all of the octolings. This time though, it was that stupid ball. Because it appeared later on in the run, it was harder, and I gotta admit, I struggled here. Man, there's something about this fight I just don't like. I think it's because the boss is always moving alongside all of the enemies that surround it. I managed to beat it, but it did cost me a life. That boss was horrible. I actually can't stand that thing, man. The next part I struggled with was floor 23, which was splat zones of course. At parts this floor just felt impossible. The only thing I could do is just hope that the enemies would just, you know, stop spawning so I could reclaim the zone. But somehow though, I actually managed to beat the floor. Oh my god, I actually did that. That took 7 minutes. I can't believe I actually did that. Eventually, I reached the final boss again, and I'm not gonna lie, I was stressed. I had to continue in case I lost all my lives, but I was still nervous. I felt like I could beat it though, but any confidence I had diminished after I was on my last life and with no continue as well. I decided to go a bit more aggressive on my last life, and somehow, I did it. That was so stressful. Literally on my last life. Overall, using the splattershot wasn't bad at all. It helped having experience with the dualies already, and of course having strong hacks enabled. After having completed the run with the splattershot, the next weapon I considered using was the roller. Alright, we're going to go for the roller. I'm not going to lie, I'm scared. I'm not confident with this weapon at all, but we're going to have to give it a go. Whenever I play Splatoon online, the roller is not usually my first pick, but it is kind of similar to the ink brush that I like. So I had a little bit of experience with this type of weapon. In terms of colour chips, I didn't really know what to go for with the roller, so when playing, I just planned to grab whatever sounded good really. My first attempt went pretty well. I bet you can guess what the first boss was at floor 10 as well. Are you serious? This boss again? Using the roller was actually pretty fun. It made me change how I play through the floors, and also how I deal with certain enemies. Hitting enemies that were further away was more difficult with the roller, but the ones that were up close, I could deal with pretty quickly. I did end up losing a couple of lives though, mainly when I got overwhelmed by enemies, but other than that, this run went well. By the time I made it to the final boss, I had all my lives and a continue in the bank as well. The final boss also went pretty smoothly. Getting rid of the tentacles was easier with the roller, as I was doing a decent amount of damage with every hit. I had pretty strong colour chips which helped with damage as well. With one last swing of the roller, I'd beaten the boss and completed my run. I'd say the roller was a bit easier to use than the splattershot, but I did have some more hacks than last time, which does make a difference. I decided to go for a completely different type of weapon next, the charger. There's not really too much to say about this weapon, but I could snipe those tower enemies from far away, which was really useful. I found that the colour chip that upgraded the charge time was useful, as I could take out enemies quicker with it. I took out the final boss again and moved on. The next weapons I decided to use was the Lunar Blaster, Stringer, Slosher, Splatling and Splatana. These weapons weren't too difficult to use and I got them all done first try. If you're put off by Side Order's initial difficulty, just stick with it and keep trying, because once you get better and get some good hacks, it gets easier. Of course, if you want a challenge though, you can turn as many hacks that you want off, which I'll be doing soon. Eventually, it was my time to do the run with the Brella, and I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't looking forward to it. I do not want to use this weapon at all, but I've got to use the Umbrella. The Brella wasn't fun to use, but I got it done. The next weapon I decided to use was the Octo Brush, which was the one I was looking forward to the most. I do prefer the normal ink brush though, but the Octo one was still fun to use, and I enjoyed my run with it. Once I'd finished my Octo Brush run, the final palette unlocked, Agent 8's. Agent 8's palette with the Octo Shot has a little twist to it. The more hacks you have enabled, the less colour chips you're allowed to add to the palette. Using this palette, I could also unlock a special badge, which I'm going to call the Low Hack Badge. To earn this badge, I could only use a maximum of 4 hacks. So I can only use 4 hacks, so I've gone for 3 lives, my damage up, and a continue. So hopefully I can do this. I picked 2 extra lives as they allow me to play a bit more confidently, because I knew if I died, I had another chance. A continue also helps with this, and a slight increase in weapon damage also helps to take out enemies just a little bit quicker. While playing, I had to be careful about which colour chips I picked, as I only had 12 empty slots to use. The chips I looked out for were the ones that increased my fire rate damage, and also any mobility upgrades as well. The main firing speed upgrade was one I was also looking out for. I had a few close calls during this run, but I eventually reached the final boss. This is where things went a little crazy. This was like the 12th time I was doing this boss, so if you think about it, I shouldn't really be struggling too much, but for some reason, I was. Not having hacks that I pretty much relied on made the enemies a lot stronger. It felt like I was on my first run again. I ended up dying multiple times, and I had to use some membooks I saved for a continue. The fear of failure I felt during my first run was starting to come back, so I just tried to concentrate and focus on beating it, but I died again. With only 2 lives left, I had to focus, but not rush the fight too much to beat it. I slowly worked my way around the boss, taking out its tentacles while dodging the enemies along the way. I had to be both offensive and defensive during this fight. I needed to know when a good time to attack was, and really, just play smartly. And eventually, I took out the last group of tentacles. When the boss was open to attacks, I just went crazy firing at it. And just when I thought I was about to beat it and be done, the enemies tried to push me away. I really thought I was about to die here. But then, this happened. Yes! Oh my god. I can't believe I did that. I was so relieved that I managed to beat it, because I'm telling you now, I did not want to do that run again. With that run completed, I'd finally finished Side Order with all 12 weapons. I was wondering where my low hack badge was though, and I was scared I messed something up, but then I found it. There we go, that is Side Order completely finished. We beat the Spy of Order with every pallet, and we also got the low hack badge, which was actually pretty difficult. Side Order took me around 15 hours to complete according to my Switch profile. Thank you so much for watching, and if you'd like to see me 100% an incredibly grindy Nintendo game, I have a video where I 100% completed Yoshi's Crafted World, which you can watch by pressing here.